Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hear2See channel. We've got an overview for the book of Esther, the Bible book of Esther. Hear2See channel focused on sharing pearls of wisdom, nuggets of knowledge, understanding the difficult, and instructions for a better life. The Bible book of Esther. This is a great one. Esther, written around 470 BC. As always, we'll be looking at Dr. Charles Swindoll, Chuck Swindoll's Insight for Living webpage, which has overviews for each book of the Bible, including Esther. The outline is who wrote the book, where are we, why is Esther so important, what is the big idea, how do I apply this, and a great Bible study aid. So we'll be checking that out. The Bible book overview of Esther. Who wrote the book? The unknown author of the book of Esther was most likely a Jew very familiar with the royal Persian court. The detailed descriptions of the court life and traditions, as well as the events that occurred in the book, point to an eyewitness author. Because this perspective was pro-Jewish, scholars believe he was a Jew, writing for the remnant that had returned to Judah under Zerubbabel. Some have suggested Mordecai himself was the author, though the accolades for him found in the text suggest that another person, perhaps one of his younger contemporaries, was the author. The book is named for the star of the story, a young Jewish girl named Hadassah, who was taken from her guardian, Mordecai, and forced to compete for the affection of the king. This unlikely contestant for a beauty pageant was crowned Queen of Persia and renamed Esther, meaning star. In the book of Esther, written around 470 BC, takes place in the Persian Empire, where Xerxes ruled over 127 provinces from India to Kush. And this is a map of that area at that time where this story takes place. Where are we? The events in the book of Esther occurred from 483 BC to 473 BC, during the first half of the reign of King Xerxes, who chose Esther as his queen. During this time period, the first remnant of Jews who had returned to Judah were struggling to reestablish temple worship according to the law of Moses. But Esther and Mordecai, along with many other Jews, had chosen not to make the trek back to Judah. They seemed content to stay in Susa, the capital city of Persia, in which the story is set. The book was written no earlier than 470 BC and probably no later than 424 BC, during the reign of Xerxes, son of Artaxerxes. Why is Esther so important? Esther is the only book in the Bible not to mention the name of God, but that is not to say that God was absent. His presence permeates much of the story, as though he were behind the scenes coordinating coincidences and circumstances to make his will happen. Much like the book of Ruth, this book stands as one of the most skillfully written biblical books, using 8 feasts to systematically build and resolve suspense. The author constructed the story chiastically, using a Hebrew literary device in which events mirror each other inversely. Each listener to the story would have recognized significant events and followed the rising tension with understanding. Haman, the king's evil second-in-command, was a descendant of Agag, king of the Amalekites, who were ancient enemies of God's people. Reference Numbers chapter 24, verse 7, 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 8. He cast the lot, called Pur, in order to determine the day the Jews would be exterminated. Esther chapter 3, verses 7 to 9. The Feast of Purim, still celebrated by Jews today, commemorates the Jews' deliverance from Haman's plot. Chapter 9, verses 24 to 32. What is the big idea? While the primary purpose of the book of Esther was to relate the dramatic origins of the Feast of Purim, a greater theme shines through the story. The sovereignty and faithfulness of God permeates each scene. Nothing is truly coincidental. The book of Esther says to us, God's sovereignty is best surmised in Mordecai's exhortation to Esther. And who knows whether you have not attained royalty for such a time as this. Esther chapter 4, verse 14. When events seemed out of control to Esther and Mordecai, when the king dictated ruin for their people, when evil was posed to triumph, God was at work. He worked through their dark days. Esther was taken to the harem, chapter 2, verses 1 to 16. Their faithful obedience, Esther risked her life before the king, chapter 5, verses 1 to 3. And their victories, Esther revealed Haman's plot and the Jews' destruction of their enemies in chapters 7 and 9 through 9. This message is clear. God is sovereign even when life doesn't make sense. God is also the great promise keeper. Mordecai said to Esther, if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. Esther chapter 4, verse 14. Mordecai's words reflected his faith that God would honor his eternal covenant with Abraham and David. So how do I apply this? Life can be hard. Difficult times happen, and pain cannot be avoided. When life doesn't make sense, do you turn to God or away from Him? Let the book of Esther encourage you that God is always present. Jesus called us friends, John chapter 15, verse 15. And the Spirit is our helper, chapter 14, verse 26. Trust and obey as Esther did, and watch God silently weave all events for His glory and for our good. Now, Esther, the Bible study chart provided by the Insight for Living Ministries. And here is the Esther Overview Bible chart. And as we zoom in, we can look at it in greater detail. You can see they have got the book of Esther, 10 chapters divided into 7 different sections. And 2 parts. The hard times is the first part, and the happy times is the second part. And within the hard times, we've got Esther's chapter 1 and 2, the king's banquet. Esther chapter 3, Haman's plot. Esther chapters 4 and 5, Esther's courage. Esther chapter 6 and 7, God's deliverance. Esther chapter 8, Mordecai's decree. Esther chapter 9, Jews rejoicing. And Esther chapter 10 is Shalom. This is a great chart that you can study in greater detail out at their web page. Really, really helpful. And be sure to like and subscribe so you can check out all of our videos. We've got Hear Journal videos for each chapter of many different books of the Bible. And now we're adding Esther. You can read along with us one chapter a day, or as many chapters as you wish. And comment below. Share your experiences with us. Have you read the book of Esther? What's your thoughts about it? Comment below. And do you know Jesus as your Lord and Savior? If not, read the Gospel of John chapter 3 to learn about His forgiveness, and be sure to talk to God about it. Talk to God. And stay tuned. Next video is Esther chapter 1. See you there.